first thing. I've been sitting here for like, I don't know, a minute trying to figure out what to do. Wrote down a list even. Okay, so today we're starting something a little different and new, where we're gonna sit here together and we are gonna learn about diabetes. Because I obviously have it. I make enough jokes about it. I've got diabetes. And like, and I want to kind of get this started. I know no one's here right now on the live stream, but I do want to have this available on YouTube, for people to look at in the future, maybe reference, know what we're trying to do here, that kind of stuff. So I'm going to kind of get into it, deep delve as it were. I was going to do a starting screen, but by the time I looked at the clock, it was like 5. And anyway, not important. What is important? So, diabetes. And obviously, I have no, like, official, training or educational status with which to, like, give this, I guess. It's mostly just, hey, I'm a person with diabetes, and I noticed that a lot of people who have diabetes really struggle especially in the beginning, and kind of in general. At least when I was diagnosed, and I usually talk about this, but I don't know if I go into super detail. But to recap, when I was diagnosed, the doctor I went to was not informative at all. I had no idea what the hell, like I've, heard of people having diabetes, but so I can't eat candy for the rest of my life, I guess. But it's more than that, and we'll get into it. But it was funny because, it wasn't funny because, so my sugars at the time were 363, which is a lot. It's not like going to die a lot, like, to my knowledge, I'm gonna backtrack what I just said. Doesn't matter. But I had, I think when I got there it was in the afternoon, so I was driving by, I had picked up Burger King. I don't know what, And I asked her, I'm like, well, I just ate, is that okay? And she's like, yeah, it's fine. It's not. It's not fine. And I'll explain that too. But that was all the information I was given. I wasn't given a pamphlet. I wasn't given any information on what I had just been diagnosed with. The best information I got initially was from buying my meter, my little tester thing, because it had oh my god, I don't have it anymore, but my dad read the whole ass instruction. The instruction thing's like, I can't show you how big, it's massive. It's literally like 4 feet by 5 feet. Hi, Pika, you're never late, hun. It's okay. I'm just starting kind of getting on track here because I do want this to go on to YouTube, like I said before, so people, don't have to wait for me to sit here and make jollies. Anyway, so I was left very much in the dark of what I had just been diagnosed with, and I went out with a friend just after that and had some pancakes with syrup and all this stuff. It was Bob Evans. And crepes. Oh, we won't talk about that because I got rid of the crepes and it's really actually depressing, but that's fine. So, there was no information given, anything like that. And the more I read into it, I don't remember the book. I wish I did. But my friend, who's a librarian, she also has type 1 diabetes, and she may join us at times during these, because we're going to try to do these every Wednesday or so. And she recommended me this book, and I read it, and for a while, it felt like eating was going to kill me. Like every time I had a meal, I'm not dying, but I was signing my own death sentence thing, right? And I'm like, this is awesome. I don't know. I didn't know what I could eat, what I couldn't eat, what was okay, what was bad, what was wrong, what was this, what was that. And I didn't for a while until my dad got diagnosed with diabetes shortly after I did. I think I got diagnosed in January, he got diagnosed in August, and he almost died. So what was different between his diagnosis and mine, he had blood sugars, I was 363, The only reason I know is because of the 3 and the 3, and then he had an 8 and an 8. He was 868. Those were his sugars. So what that means when we're saying, well, this was my blood sugar. So like if I test myself right now, I can tell you what my blood sugar is. And it takes, hi Coda, look at those little blue eyes. Look at all the blue eyes. I love them. Anyway. So, okay. So example, all these little blue eyes that were just all over. I wish I should get my tablet out. I could draw it for you. But essentially what it is, because there's 2 types of diabetes, there's type 1, type 2, right? I'm going to talk a lot about type 2 because that's what I'm familiar with. That's what I have. And it's basically, so let's say I eat a piece of chocolate cake. It's going to raise up my blood sugar. That means that there's a lot of sugar cells in my bloodstream and not enough insulin to counteract the sugars that are in my blood. So normally how it works is the insulin comes, and I do have a video up. I really don't care if it's like, oh, copyright, blah. I don't care. I think that it's important to be educated. I did share the link to that video actually in my Discord. But I think we'll watch little bits of it because it really explains it very well. But essentially what insulin does is it's like, hey, they just ate chocolate. Quick, go tell the sugar to go into these blood cells. And the blood cells are like, yes, sugar's great. It's what makes you move. It's what gives you the ADP. Remember 8th grade? It gives you the ADP stuff so you can move and shit, right? But then with diabetes, some of the things are like, no, that's okay. You can keep the sugar to yourself. We don't want it. It's icky. And you're like, that's nice. Okay. And what it does, so when your sugar's like my dad, his were 868. He was to the point where he actually 24 hours he would have died. Why there's such a vast difference is because with his sugars being so high, he was in ketoacidosis. It's a big word, I know. So the keto diet actually ties into that. My dad wasn't on the keto diet, but what the keto diet does is it forces your body into ketoacidosis, to my understanding, which is fine if you're a typical, normal, healthy person. What it does in diabetics and with us, when let's say we're out hiking, we get lost, running out of food rations, we're all gonna starve and die. Me being a diabetic, my body is more likely to break down the muscles in my body before it breaks down the fat. With just the regular starving. Obviously with exercise and stuff, a little different because your body uses that fat reserve to, give you that energy. But starving to death is a whole different ballgame, and that's what causes ketoacidosis in diabetics. It doesn't work the same way because it's not the sugars for diabetes. It's actually the carbohydrates, and I do have some foods here so we can kind of learn about that too. But, so with my father, he had the ketoacidosis, which in turn caused swelling in his brain, which is actually pushing on his eyes. And he could not, so when you're driving a car and you can see the road, he could not. He could see the front of his hood. He could not see the road. And then he was also, when you have those really high sugars, so you notice I drink a lot of pop, right? We call it pop here, okay? Okay, it's pop. I drink a lot of pop. And that especially was true when my sugars would be really high. I was in the 300s, 400s, that kind of range for a long time. With my dad being in the 800s, he was a water drinker, bless his soul. But that was bad, actually. So what he was doing with his sugars being that high and just feeling thirsty, he was drinking so much water that he was actually expelling all of the electrolytes in his body, which are what make your heart go thump thump, kind of give you the electrical impulses to move and live and stuff. Yeah. They told him to quit drinking water, so I had to slip him water into the intensive care unit, so that was great. I was like, Puppy, no! He's like, I'm thirsty. But he got his sugars down, and it's great. He's doing 100% better now, and that kind of stuff. And he swears up and down, he's like, the keto diet's awful, because he had ketoacidosis. So, and I know we talk about sugars a lot with diabetes, well, you can't have candy. It's more than just candy. So, for example, I have a ramen packet. These are old. I get yelled at for eating these, okay, by my dad, because he's a good diabetic. I'm not a good diabetic. So what you do when you're looking at food. You don't look at the sugars. What you need to look at, and I'll try to get a good photo of it, is the total, can you read that? God, no. Total carbohydrates, stop looking at my face. The total carbohydrates on there, right? So for this one, per serving is 27. For the whole packet, which is the best because I don't even have the fucking math, it's 54 grams of carbohydrates, because carbohydrates break down into that sugar that flows through your blood and all that fun stuff. Now, this is where you have to do math. So as you see, let me get it up there again. So come on, focus for me. Do it. Okay, well anyway, for the total carbohydrates, there's 54 grams, right? If you look at the dietary fiber there, maybe, possibly, look at it. Look, I'm just slowly inching closer. What if I, this way? Aha! It says 2 grams, okay, for dietary fiber. So you take the 54 minus the 2 because your body does not digest the dietary fibers. This ramen packet, all by itself, is 52 grams of sugar. Well, of carbohydrates, which will turn into sugar and all that fun stuff. That's not bad. 52 carbohydrates is not bad for a meal. But it's one ramen packet. Ramen. It's one packet of ramen. Like, that's it. And the best, so like with my father and him having the super high sugars and that kind of thing, the best thing to do is do about 30 carbohydrates per meal. So not even a whole ass ramen. You know what? It's ramen packet. Honestly, like, sometimes you gotta look at calories, especially if you're very overweight. It's really good to look at your calories because, well, what your fat does is it actually, and the video explains this really well, and it's actually something I learned from that video. But what it does is it holds those, kind of like those sugar molecules, and they release over time, obviously, but it's basically having that extra weight does make your diabetes worse. And because diabetes, there's no cure. You can control it, but there is no cure for it. This disease will kill me regardless. Unless I'm literally bamboozled in the face, it will kill me. And I'm not trying to be like pessimistic or anything. That's just the reality that diabetics have to face. That is why when I first got diagnosed, I was terrified to eat because this is going to kill me. When you're kind of like faced with your own morality, it's like, oh shit, man. That's why I make the joke, like, oh, it's gonna cost me a foot for like a piece of cheesecake, because it does. Realistically, over time, it does. But there's solutions to this kind of thing because you still have to eat those carbohydrates. You cannot completely cut them out. That's when you start going into that ketoacidosis and things like that, which you want to avoid. It's no bueno. Okay. So I grabbed this because this is the closest thing, and it's beef flavor. It's the closest thing I have to a pure noodle, like angel hair pasta, that kind of stuff. It's the best pasta example I had. But what I also have is an alternative, a not gross alternative, because let me tell you, some of the alternatives are just like, I'd rather die by eating the regular stuff. Because, and being like, when your sugars are high, so like with my dad, he couldn't see and he just got kind of funky, like, I don't want to say delirious, but sort of, the really thirsty thing. There's a lot of factors that go into having really high sugars, having really low sugars, when your sugars are really high. And so for a normal person, so like you guys that may not have diabetes or anything like that, when you eat a whole cake, part of a cake, I just really want cake, okay? I forgot my cupcake liners, that's fine. When you eat cake, or whatever it might be, your sugars maximum usually go up to about 120. That's like the max for most people. When you start to go perpetually upwards with these, so like, okay, well, every time you eat now you're getting to 130, 140, that's when you become what they call a borderline diabetic. They might have changed the thing since I was diagnosed. I was actually diagnosed as borderline diabetic when I was 15 or 16. One of those two. I had no idea what that meant. And neither did my mom, so I just quit drinking pop because I was gaining a pound of sugar a week in pop. Mountain Dew specifically, but, I was thirsty. Anyway, but they do make some, oh, man, I'm catching all my ums now. They do make some alternatives to like pastas and those kinds of things. Obviously, it's not going to taste the same. You do, however, acquire a taste for it. This is edamame. It's those little Japanese beans, and they're not it's not terrible. It's much better than whatever that stuff is in that orange box they have at Walmart. Sweet peas or something. So this one, we're gonna have to look at serving size. We're gonna have to do some math. It's okay. Don't worry, I'll be your math guide. Okay. So per serving for this, a serving size is a half noodle block. That is great. It doesn't tell me how many ounces that is. How many ounces is this? 3 ounces, so 1.5 ounces versus... We'll do per 3.5 ounce serving. So we can do the whole packet versus some of this. Okay. This, the total carbohydrate, I'll try to show you this one too. I wish I had a better light. I had more lights on, but like I don't have any light by my camera. The total carbohydrates on this, for about the same, actually this is a little bit more, per serving, is, get me out of the frame. Which way do I gotta go? Okay, is, oh god, here we go. Come on. Do it. 35. And then you subtract the dietary fiber of 23. So I'm gonna need a calculator. But that's, no I don't. See, that's 12. Yeah, thank you. That's 12 carbohydrates. Thank you. Thanks, Coda. Look, I do my best. But that's 12. For this, a little, actually 0.5 ounces more, so like, 3 noodles. And you could make ramen with this. It's not the best. It does not. It does, flavor-wise, we know who the reigning champion is. But this is not bad. And they make a whole bunch of stuff like that. Obviously, you usually got to pay a little bit more for it. But there are what they consider free foods for diabetics. And those are your meats, eggs, and your cheeses. The only drawback to those is the calories. You can be like me and not count calories and not give a hoot because it's meat and eggs and cheese, but like meat, because there's no carbs there. There's just calories and meat and protein. So I like meat so much. I can eat it. It's free. Did not learn about meat sweats until like last year. Wild ride. But yeah. So let's see. So we talked about what diabetes is, kind of how it works. So type 2 diabetes is insulin resistance. My body hates my own insulin. And over time, it hates it more and more and more and more. Obviously, it's a very slow... Usually, it can be a very slow... resistance to your own insulin, so obviously you gotta take more and more and more. But depending on how well you manage your diabetes and your sugar intake and things like that, you can manage it fairly well so that the process takes longer than, I don't know. I've had diabetes since 2016. It's almost been 10 years, and really I've gotten better, but it's a process. And there's no time limit on how well you can make that progress. And I'm obviously open to questions, anything like that. If anyone has any while we're talking about this, if you have a relative, you want to know what's going on, anything like that, feel free to ask. If I don't know the answer, we can either look for it together or we will figure it out next time. So type 2 diabetes, that's what I have. It's also known as insulin resistance. And so to combat that, some people have to they have the main pill most people go on is metformin. I'm not really sure what that one does. It didn't really work for me realistically because my sugars were really high when I got diagnosed. But usually it helps. So like I said, that blood cell is like, no, I don't want your nasty sugar. It helps open those up a little bit. So they're like, oh, maybe that is a good idea. Maybe I should have this. I am so warm, but my hands are so cold. It's actually really nice. I might do this for a minute. So I take 2 pills and I have 1 shot a week. This is actually, I have one here for some reason, just randomly. This is my weekly shot. I get horrified to take it. The needle is massive. Like long, like it's like that long. I don't know how deep it goes into my tum-tum. I don't look. Because there's places you can give yourself the shot and things like that. Now, let's say I were to lose weight, I were to take it super serious, I were to lose the weight, I could probably not have this, realistically. A lot of it comes down to your health status as you live and things like that. And then I have 2 pills that I take, one in the morning, one in the evening. I've had really good luck with this one personally. So the reason why I take it once a week, it is a long-term injection. So what that means is that I take the shot, put it in my tum-tum. I'll just put it here, right? And then over time, over that week, it releases the insulin slowly from that spot. Doesn't realistically matter. It all has to go to the blood anyway. And then the pills kind of also do that, just on a short-term basis. So they're a 24-hour thing. This is a week. Now, some people take insulin every day. That's simply because the insulin is quick acting. Some people have to, like my dad, he usually takes it, I believe, in the morning and in the evening, sometimes after bigger meals, because his is an instant acting insulin. So he takes it when he needs it. I take mine whenever. I do usually eat with it for some fucking reason. I don't know why. It's just a habit, I guess. Reason to eat. Ow. But yeah. So it really just depends on what you and your doctor decide. Now, going into the doctor aspect of it, there's something called an endocrinologist that you typically will start to see if you ever get diagnosed with diabetes. And I love my doctor. But the thing is, you don't want to get too many hands in the pot. So my endocrinologist, in my eyes, is the only one in charge of my diabetic medication. That is his specialty. That is who I go to for that. My personal doctor does not have a say in any... She can know what I'm taking. She has no say in to change my prescription, any of that stuff. That is through him only. Because you start getting too many hands in the cookie jar, then everyone gets fucked up, and then you're fucked up because it's your body. It's my skin. And you don't want that, because something could be working for you really well with your endo, because that's their specialty. That's what they do all day, is deal with diabetic people. They're supposed to look at your feet. Now, the reason why they look at your feet, I'll get to in a minute. They're supposed to, not all do, but that's okay. It's okay. It's fine if they don't. You'll know, you know your body. You know if something's wrong. Oh, yeah, but your doctor might be like, oh, well, you don't need that. You should try this instead. And yeah, it gets messy. Going into that, the side effects of diabetes. Well, let me touch on type 1 just a little. I'm familiar, but I obviously don't have it, so I'm not going to speak a lot on it just because I don't want to give false information. But basically, so if type 2 is my insulin is resistant to my own body, type 1, your pancreas doesn't work at all or has very minimal functionality to the point where most people need a pump. Sometimes you'll see them with on their hips and then a little cord coming out. That actually is a pump of insulin. So when they eat, they can go, okay, this is, let's take our ramen pack, for example. This is 52 grams of carbs. I need 2 cc's of insulin. And as you learn your body, you learn what you need, because certain foods have different sugars too. Apples have the fructose or whatever. And then this is a whole ass different kind of carbohydrate, and your body will react differently to those. What my dad did, what I will never do, I don't have the patience for it. He would eat something, and then he'd test himself before he ate. He would eat, he'd test himself 10 minutes after, half an hour after, 1 hour after, to see how it affected his body. To see, okay, I start out eating this apple, I'm at 100 on here. 15 minutes later, he's at 110. Half an hour later, he's at 115. Okay, so it affects me by 15 points. Jot, jot, jot. Now he knows that he can eat an apple and get that. That is why his A1C is 5.4 and mine is 7.2. Okay? 7 is not bad. I used to be 12, so... and what an A1C is it's kind of like a test over the last 3 months or a couple months on your blood sugar. The higher it is, the more, obviously the higher your sugars have been consistently. I went from 12 to 6 and they were all flabbergasted because I did it in 6 months. How? I have no idea. I think I just didn't eat. I was working at a undisclosed phone store at the time. So I was driving everywhere and I think I honestly just forgot to eat most of the time. Hacks though. There are hacks. So a lot of times before I go to my endo, because that's where I get my A1C done, I just don't eat like the day or two before. But I didn't do that with the 12 to 6. I actually was normal with my eating then, or whatever I was doing at the time. But yeah, if you're nervous, you can just not eat like the day or two, day and a half before. Just obviously you have to do what's right for you. If that's not going to work, if you're going to pass out, if your blood sugars are too low, don't do it. The best thing you can do for someone, just to touch on this a little bit, if someone is really low, make sure that they're not just telling you that they're low, unless that's hard, because someone who's new with their diabetes might think that they're low, but actually they have a really high blood sugar, and it's always good to test, just to make sure. So that way, if you give them apple juice, orange juice, regular pop, not a lot of it, just kind of a good sip or two. Yes. So if your friend, let's say you're working together and they're like, oh my God, I think my sugars are low, and they're recently diagnosed, have them test, then take the measures. Now, if their sugars are too high, so let's say they're in the 300s, the 200s, the 400s, the whatever hundreds, if they're above like 150, I'd say. It just depends on the person. But if they're kind of high, have them drink water. There's nothing realistically you can do to make it just disappear. Not like you can when it's low. The best thing you can do is just wait it out. I dropped like 100 points one time, but I drank so much water. Don't do that. It's awful. It's worse than a hangover. It fucks you up. And the reason why diabetes fucks you up so hard and is because it's in your blood. And the reason why I say I will die of diabetes no matter what is because your blood goes everywhere. Ergo, diabetes will affect everything in your body. Everything. And that's why a lot of times the feet are the first thing to kind of have those side effects, is because that's where all of your blood goes. Every single bit of it. Okay, so Chowsy says if you are 200 plus, exercise can be worse for you than waiting for it to come down. That is very true. It's interesting. So remember in the beginning, I kind of talked a little bit about how when you have like an excess of fats, it can release those things and make your sugars high. That's part of it. Whatever her comment is, the exercising is part of that, because you're exercising and your body releases, it's eating the fats and it releases that. And then your body's working harder in general. So it does make your sugars higher. Interesting fact, drinking whiskey actually can bring your sugars down. Whiskey, not those mixed drinks, not none of that. Just like straight shots of whiskey can bring down your sugars. It's really weird how all of it works. But no, Chowsy, that's a great point. And yeah, alcohol in general, but not the mixed types. Because I drink all the fruity drinks. But beer also, that's why I said whiskey. Not beer. And the only reason that I know that is because my dad didn't experiment with it. Selling poorly. Oh, spilling? Oh, you're fine. You're fine. And trust me, it's okay. It's all right. I can read not spell. But yeah, there are certain things that can help. I obviously wouldn't recommend, if your coworker is feeling like their sugars are high and you test and they are, that you give them a shot of whiskey. That would be a bad idea. Just wait it out. It's the best thing you can do, is just wait it out. It's awful and everyone's different. So like when my sugars are really high, I get sweaty, I get delirious, I get uncomfortable, I just want to sleep. A lot of people get really tired. They will get kind of like a brain fog almost, and that's true with lows. That's why it's really hard for you, unless your friend has had it for a long time and they're like, nope, I'm low. I know I might have, I get tired and nauseous. See? And I don't get nauseous when I'm high. I just get tired. So, you know, if I get tired and mind foggy when I'm high, but I get tired and I've never been low. But if I get tired and sore when I'm low, obviously I know my body enough to, okay, oh, well, I'm low, I need to drink some apple juice. But until, you know, if it's, like I said, if it's a friend that's recently diagnosed, always test them before you try to help them. And it's being a friend to a diabetic person when they're first diagnosed is also, it can be difficult because it's, well, what do you say? What do you do? Don't tell them what they can and can't eat. Don't. If they're going to have that piece of cake, obviously if they've asked you for help with maybe monitoring their food or something like that, if they have directly asked for your help, that's different. If you think you're being a good friend by going, oh, should you really eat that? You're not. Straight up, you're just, I understand where the thought comes from. But having said that, with not just diabetes, but with my weight by certain people, like an ex-fiance and stuff like that, don't do it. Just don't. Yeah, we understand, most of us, especially, and I know it's hard when your friend's first diagnosed, you want to help them. But it's already hard enough to understand that you have a disease that is going to kill you. That's already difficult enough, especially since we live in such a culture, and a lot of cultures are very heavily food-based. You know, oh, well, you graduated college, food. You got an A, food. What do you want to eat because you did this good thing? Food. Like, everything centers around eating. I swear to God, and you don't notice until you have diabetes. It's like, holy fuck, we eat a lot. And that's okay. You can still enjoy those meals. It's just about moderation mostly. So instead of having 5 plates, you can only have 1 or 2. But being a friend to a diabetic is, I will say it is hard, because another thing that comes along with the diabetes and the highs and the lows are mood swings. There's a very, and it's gonna sound really stupid and funny and maybe like an excuse, but it's not. There's a very serious thing with hangry and diabetics. When we get fucking hungry, it's because it's also a hormone thing, I guess, because I was asking about it. I'm like, I just feel really mad when I'm hungry. Sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes. And there's a hormone thing with being hangry and being a diabetic, so that's interesting. It's a wild time because, like I said, your blood goes everywhere. So diabetes affects every part of your body. My dad, type 2, gets hangry when he is low. Yep. And I think that's true for a lot of them. I just get, in general, hangry. Like, I had corn, and that's another thing about having those high sugars. Some people, I'm one of them, you always feel hungry. Even though you just ate a lot of food, you still feel hungry. When my sugars are 300 and some, I always felt hungry. I wasn't, but my stomach thought my throat was cut, so I was just hungry. That's how hungry I was. Now, obviously, if you have a concern for, and Chowsy, you can help me on this. If you have a concern for your diabetic friend because maybe they're in a depressive state, that happens a lot. Or something like that, and they're, they're kind of going a little ham. Maybe, okay, there's having a piece of cake, but then there's having half the damn thing. Like, whoa, son. It's hard. Because obviously you want to approach them and be like, are you doing okay? But also you don't want to be, like I said, being told what we can and can't eat is really fucking annoying. I get where it comes from, but also, like, I know my body and all that fun stuff. So it's hard to find that balance. But maybe just ask them, like we talked about in the last After Dark with Purge, just ask if they're okay. See how they're doing. Be that friend that takes them aside and been like, hey, like, I just noticed, like, you're kind of acting weird. You doing okay? That kind of thing, versus immediately pointing to their blood sugar thing with the cake and that kind of stuff. Cake's gonna be a big one. There really isn't, and I think that's why kind of taking the emotional route versus, well, you know, your sugars are going to be, don't do that. Just pull them aside. Are you doing okay? Like, or is everything all right? Because a lot of that would probably be tied into emotional stuff, I would guess. It's very difficult. It is. And it's difficult for the diabetic to find, especially if they're recently diagnosed, to kind of find their groove, because they've had a lifestyle ripped away from them almost, essentially, is how it realistically feels. You've lived this one way and it's been fine. You can go eat with friends. Now you can't. Which you can, but it feels like you can't. It feels like that kind of socializing has been stolen from you. Don't say I'm worried about you either. That's a good way to create guilt and eating issues. That is very true. That's why I said, like, pointing out, like, the ex-fiance thing. Like, because I was told, oh, well, should you really eat that? Just because of I'm 6'1", okay? I'm a broad lady. I don't want to be a lady, but I'm a broad one. So, yeah, I want to eat the fucking rice. It happens. So, but yes, as Chelsea just said, that can cause eating issues. So please refrain. And yeah, there's no real good way to approach it, but I think going the route of, just asking how they're doing is the best route. And it's hard. It's hard on both fronts. Because I'm trying to think of, like, what wouldn't offend me? What wouldn't piss me off back when I was first diagnosed? Well, not a whole hell of a lot of anything. Everything would piss me off. Because as you're learning about it, as you learn about diabetes and what it means for you going forward with your life, it doesn't paint a good picture. But we have to look at some kind of positive, because, yes, diabetes is awful and all that fun stuff, but there is a little bit of a way to control it, especially if you've got recently diagnosed and you can kind of, like, get that horse by the reins before it runs off. And a lot of that is, healthy habits, and I know everyone says that, but it is realistically true. Healthy eating habits, and really just monitoring yourself, and not letting it bring you down is the biggest key. It's going to, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. There is nothing wrong about crying because you've been diagnosed with something awful. There's no harm in that. There's no harm in crying because medicine's fucking expensive. You're fine to do that, 100%. But you're not alone, and that's why I wanted to kind of start this for people who have questions and all that stuff, or just feel that they're just lost. Finding hope is important, and preventing burnout is also important. You have to find your balance. You really do. You do. And it's, like I said, I was diagnosed in 2016. It's taken me, I don't know, pretty much a couple years to figure out what's working for me. And I think having a good support system and a good doctor is a big part of that. But going a little bit back to what it does, and you can't catch diabetes from anybody, just so you know, okay? It's all a environmental and genetic thing. My dad has it, I think my mom had it when she was dying, but she also had cancer, so that's a moot point. Everyone on my dad's side has had the damn thing, pretty much. So it's not something that, oh my god, my friend's blood touched me, no. Don't be a dick. That's not how that works. It's not AIDS, okay? Don't be rude. I got avoided in 3rd grade because the kids thought that. Yeah, and honestly, like, I was diagnosed as a goddamn adult, and some people were acting that way. I had to do a presentation in class. In 3rd grade? Oof. That's awful. Honestly, that's awful. And Chowsy is another one. Like I said, she's the friend that will be not here all the time, but she does have type 1. And she has some insights that I probably don't. Yeah. So, gang's all here. But anyway, when it's in your blood and going everywhere, that's why, so, for example, with glasses, your sugars will actually affect your eyesight within a 2-week or sooner time span. So there's times where I can't see out of these. I mean, not so much anymore, but especially when my sugars were very fluctuating. Sometimes you couldn't see and sometimes you could. Because what it does is it affects the water in your eye. I believe it's the thickness or something like that with it. I'm not 100%, but I do know that it does affect all that. And there's like a gentleman that my dad, he goes when he gets his glasses, because his sugars are good. He doesn't need like 8 pairs. Some people do. Some people need 8 different pairs because their eyes change so much with that fluid, and their sugar's not being straight, and well, not straight, but consistent. That's wild. Can confirm. My eye doctor won't take my eye measurements unless I have good blood sugar. Yeah. And the interesting thing is they can actually see your kidney health via doing those kind of eye appointments, which I think is really interesting. So yeah, it's fun. And the longer you have diabetes, especially if it's uncontrolled, the worse and more frequent your symptoms usually get. So like I have developed a brain fog and things like that. It's whether that's diabetic, and that's the thing. Is it related to your diabetes or not? And that can be really hard to determine. My sugars have been pretty decent, so I don't know. Gastroparesis is a huge thing that diabetics can get. It's uncomfortable. It hurts. I hate it. We all hate it. Though I never noticed the difference when I'm driving or trying to read. That's fair. Because it's just one of those things, too, that you're like, no, it's fine, because you go through your daily routine so much with the eye stuff that it's, but then when you're actually trying to focus on something, yeah, you notice. Gastroparesis, and a short explanation on that is, so you've got, your mouth, throat, and your esophagus, and then where it connects to, this is my understanding of it, where it connects to your stomach, there's like a little flappy flap. And sometimes that gets paralyzed. Essentially, your gastrointestinal stuff gets paralyzed. That's why they call it gastroparesis. It's great. I get sulfur burps like nobody's business. It's awful. It's the worst fucking thing. I hate it. I hate it. And it's, like I said, because diabetes, your blood goes everywhere, regardless of what, and it's hard going to doctors with diabetes because, well, do you have diabetes? Yes. So they'll automatically assume that, well, that's what's causing XYZ, when it could not be. It could be something else. And you have to be a little demanding with it. Like, hey, no, you should check me. My sugars have been decent. My sugars have been within normal range. There's no reason for this to be happening or something like that. So, let's see. I went over why you get it. Kind of over time what it does. Let's see. I feel full even if I digest slower than I used to. Interesting. Why did your little dude go so far up? I'm sorry, I got really distracted with that. That was weird. Anyway, gotcha. That's interesting, because, it's wild. It's just wild how it affects you in that manner. Let's see. Because my stomach can't feel if there's food there still. Oh. Dang, that would suck. Ah, that's awful. Just take vitamins all day, every day. Could you imagine? Ugh. And, for diabetics too, sometimes looking forward to the future. Like, I'm not gonna outlive my friends. That's a hard reality that I'm just not going to. I mean, I might live, another 30 or so years. It's entirely possible. Especially if the diabetes is under control, but, if it is, you might outlive me, but, no, I'm gonna give you all the kidney beans, just cause it's funny. Anyway, now, and that's where you gotta find that hope, that me and Chelsea kind of talked on, you gotta find the joy in the little things, and sometimes that's really hard. Like, you think about it and it's like for example, the best example I have is myself. I don't want to seem like I'm talking about my problems and my woes and my this and my that, but this is the best example I have, is my own personal experience. But for example, it's like, man, I never thought I'd, be living in my dad's outside basement at 32. Like, I assumed I'd have my own house, married, maybe kids, that kind of nonsense. That everyone is so keen on. I got kids. They're just four-legged, furry, and old. Well, one's old. Oh, bubby. But anyway. So it's like, oh, no, I got time to do that. Do I? No. So it is hard to, and that's why a lot of diabetics also get depression. And it's hard to find the joy of things. So you gotta just look forward to little stuff. And it doesn't mean that you're having diabetes and being diagnosed with it does not mean your life is over. You can find really good friends, really good communities, really good supports. And the unfortunate thing I would say is that a lot of it is really dependent on you and yourself. I'd like to say 5 years ago you couldn't predict where you are now, so you can't predict where you'll be in another 5. And I also like to think that way. It's like, wow, 5 years ago, what the hell was I doing 5 years ago? Oh, shoot, I don't even remember. I was engaged, I think, or something. Okay, Buster, I'm sorry. I just snorted behind me. What, Bubby? Anyway. But no, that's also, and it's a good mindset, because you don't know where you're going to be. Your diabetes might be out of control right now, but in 5 years, because if you do the right things and all that stuff, and bring your sugars down, I could probably get off some of my pills, and maybe even off the Trulicity. I don't know where that thing went. I can't even remember most of last week. 5 years ago would have been anything. Oh, you weren't with me at undisclosed phone store at 5 years ago, I don't think. How long have I known you for? Why am I looking up? I don't know. Hello? Camera. There we go. Yeah, I don't know. But you can get it under control. You can have... There's stuff to look forward to still. Nah, I was at Walmart. I didn't join undisclosed mobile location like 2020. Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, the Panorama or whatever the hell everyone's calling it now to avoid confliction issues. The panorama, the paranormal. There we go. We'll call it paranormal. That makes sense. But I do, and I think the biggest thing and the biggest reason I wanted to kind of start this, for type 2, you can almost go into remission though not cured. That is true. That is true. You can go into remission for type 2. You cannot for type 1. And you would think that the easiest solution for that, the panda penis. That shit was wild. It was. Panda doesn't have a penis, but that's fine. Anyway. Sorry, I had to throw that in there. I just had to. Because type 1, the pancreas, and Chelsea, correct me if I'm wrong, doesn't work at all. That's why they usually have a pump. It doesn't work at all, or it's very minimal. That's why they usually have a pump, and it, beeps if it notices their sugars are low, that kind of stuff. And you would think that the easy solution would be replace the pancreas. It's not. Unfortunately, it's not as easy as that. I wish it was. I don't make insulin, but I still regulate glucose. Yeah. Yeah. It can get really confusing, especially if this is the reason I wanted to kind of start these, because some people may not enjoy my gameplay and all that stuff. I swear a lot, I know, and I say a lot of odd things that sometimes even I'm like, why the fuck did I just say that? Pancreas transplant does not guarantee that you stop taking insulin. Ah, well, that's fair. That's fair. But still, better than nothing type thing. But that's why, because like when I was diagnosed, and I think for a lot of people when they're first diagnosed, they don't have any answers. They don't have anything. Had 2 consults about it. Ah, well, that's fair. So you got all the insight. Hot damn. I don't. That's okay. I just know type 2. That's it. But yeah, and it can be hard to, because sometimes in some stuff you have to cut out of your life. August is when I can have my 1 box of macaroni and cheese. Do you understand how hard it was today to not buy a shit ton of macaroni and cheese because it's $1? Very. My grocery bill was half dog food. I swear to God, I was at like $28. We're gonna go on a tangent. I was at like $28, and I went up to 99 between the doggins and the cat. They eat better than I do. I should start eating their food. I wonder if that's diabetic friendly. I don't know. It's not made out of noodles, so it might be. I get the good stuff because I got the pup and I want her to grow up big and strong, and I don't want to fuck her up like I fucked up my Buster. You know, because did you know that dogs can get pancreatitis? I do. Especially if you give them too many French fries. It was an accident. She's licking me, but that's fine. Yeah, this was a while ago, but Buster's had pancreatitis for a hot minute. We were living out the car. That's fine. I didn't have diabetes at the time, and we shared the 2-burger meal from McDonald's. And that's something too that can be really hard when you're a diabetic is, let's say you go to a friend's house and they're having like a potluck thing, and there is no nutrition facts on a freaking potluck. So you've kind of got to know like what's okay to eat, what's not okay to eat, or what you can have a lot of, what you can have not a lot of before you go into the game. Rice, pastas, those kinds of... You would fucking think rice would have so much fiber that you'd be able to eat it for free. You would think. Yeah, when they don't have Diet Papa to function. Or when your waitress goes, you're fine, you don't need diet, you look just fine, you don't need to be on a diet. It's like, bitch, I got diabetes, I'm gonna die. What's wrong with you? That's why I ordered a diet. Luckily, I've never had that happen, but I do know that it does happen to people. Oh, my face is just so warm. But yeah, what were we talking about? See? I don't know. Righteous Fury. Table flip. Her shirt's just falling off. I don't care. Oh yeah, but so like rice, pasta, and it for vegetables, it realistically just depends on you, and that's where you got to kind of do that testing stuff to see. So like testers, we can talk about those a little bit. I use Relion. I like it. It's a hardy little guy, let me tell you that much. I've got 2 of them, and let me tell you, they're tough. But no, so what it does, let me open this. They use these little strips here. I know, it's so clear. But these little strips, and it goes into the machine, and then you put your little droplet of blood on there, and it just tells you what your sugars are at. So then it can kind of go, like, if you're going, you know, oh, I'm going to go to a friend's potluck, let me see what my sugars are. I know. See, they're tough little guys. They're really fucking slippery. So... And this little guy will keep track of, like, your averages and all that stuff. I'm not going to show you that because I don't test all the time. I never said that I was good at diabetes. I just don't test all the time because I test when I feel funky. When you feel sick, that can be, your sugars can be going up, they can be going down. A lot of times they'll fluctuate all over the fucking place. I get concerned when I'm sick and I feel like I'm going to pass out because I do not want to go into a diabetic coma. So, like, I got it ready, poked my finger. So now we just, boop, and the blood, it just sucks up in there like a vampire. And you gotta lick your finger. So now it's thinking, you can't see there. 106, that is very surprising. I had a shit ton of corn earlier. But 106, and that's not bad. 106 is not bad at all. I would consider, I feel like a low, Chelsea, correct me if I'm wrong, is probably about like 75, definitely 60, but I feel like 75 is like, you should probably eat something, maybe not something big, but just a little something. And what you're supposed to do with this is, you'll find the slippery suckers all over the floor, yeah. They recommend, and obviously as you start, it's very good to do this. Anything under 80, but I start feeling it around 60, that's fair. And everyone's different. When you first start out, it is very good to do this morning, noon, night, so that you understand what you're going through with your body and what's happening. Like me personally, I try to not feel hungry, because when I feel hungry, it's over. It's awful. Basically, if I start to feel hungry, like I'm feeling hungry now, and I really need to go eat something, but obviously I want to do this. This to me is more important. I can deal with the side effects of me being hungry later, because personally, and this might be TMI, my guts start to hurt, and not in the like, oh, I'm hungry hurt. Like, if it makes me start to feel weird. And I don't know if my diabetes can be linked to me blurting out those weird things. I have no fucking idea. Sometimes I just do, and I feel so awful about it. And I'm like, that's why no one follows me. But, you know, that's par for the course, I guess, of being... Okay, truth, I went to diabetic camp with a girl who got seizures when she hit 70. Hot damn. Oh, when you have low blood sugar at camp? Well, that's good to know. God, that'd be awful. Is she low? I don't know. Don't! See? I promise. Is low blood sugar worse than high? That's a great question, Panda. I would say no, personally, because low sugar is easier to fix than high sugar. What the hell? Sorry, she just... Yeah, anyway, stop, hun. I know. Yeah, that's nice. I would say low is better, because if I'm low and I just need to eat something, I need to have that intake. They make glucose tablets. Oh my god, glucose tablets for diabetics. So it's just like one of those, almost like a vitamin, a chewable sometimes. And that just brings your sugars up. Depends on the person, but I feel like the symptoms are worse. They're easier to treat. And I feel like that's accurate. And glucagon kits, I'm not sure what those are, to be completely honest with you. A glucagon kit. I probably said it wrong. Like a Bakugan kit. But yeah, and it does depend on the person, because like Chelsea and I, we do not share the same side effects. And it's not because she has type 1, I have type 2. It's just how our bodies are. I can go, so for example, it's a syringe of glucose for when you pass out from low. Oh, damn. Good to know. It's like an EpiPen for diabetes. So for example, too, with my dad, because he's type 2, I'm type 2, blah, blah, blah. I can go pretty much all day without eating anything. I'll feel funky, but I don't pass out. Like, my sugars don't like super deep dive. I've had it for 29 years and my symptoms have changed over time. And I feel like that's probably true for a lot of people, simply because it's in your blood and it goes everywhere and it's going to affect, you know, you differently. But like my dad, he has to eat every couple hours. Like, he's on with his work, he eats at, 8 p.m., 1 o'clock a.m., and then when he gets home at 6 or 7 a.m. That's when he eats. And then he'll have a little something before bed. And what he did one time is he was out working on a car and he lost track of time. And he started sweating. He started feeling nauseous. He started like he was going to pass out. Mind you, he's in the garage. I'm at home just working, I assume. Because he had missed his lunch by like an hour. And that's why he started to feel funky. So it's different for everyone. Whereas I might grab a little snack, because I know that it's better for me to not go without, better for me to eat something versus not eating all day. But I theoretically can still. Obviously that will probably change the older I get. It will definitely change. That's fine. Yeah, and it's basically, it's like aging, but sped up. And awful. But it can... Quit attacking each other. Is there a way to, or something out for if you see... Or for look out to... Blah, blah, blah. Is there a way to, or something to look out for to see if you might have it without getting tested? Yes. So, I would say... Let's see, I can go a bit more than 4 hours, but then I tend to go low if I don't eat something. That's fair. In regards to Panda's question, I would say yes, so... But it's also hard because it's like, oh, maybe not. Basically, if you feel really tired all the time, if you notice that you're drinking a lot and still feel thirsty, you still got, like, dry mouth, you feel kind of like you haven't done anything and you're just tired. Not even urinating a lot, sweet-smelling breath. I never noticed that. There is something in my yard that smells like insulin, though, which is really weird. Sugar sweats. Oh, really? Meat sweats and sugar sweats? I don't know about sugars. Oh, yeah, I guess because when you're high, you sweat a lot. I know I do. Holy crap. Not actually sugar. When you just sweat like Candy Crush. Okay, so tired, you sweat a lot, you're drinking a lot, you're urinating a lot. Would you guys quit it now? Go on, go be a ruckus somewhere else. I would say body aches, because it's also going to depend on whether you could be diagnosed and you're slow all the time, you're high all the time. Most people are really high when they're diagnosed because you're eating whatever you want. A lot of people like sweets, chocolate and stuff like that. Or like fast food and things like that. Like that was my vice, is fast food. So that's what I would look for. That's a very good question, Panda. You're asking really good questions. But I would say if you're starting to feel that way, or if you think you have some of those symptoms, then I would just, these little testers are not very much. And I would just get one and check yourself before you wreck yourself. Because realistically, if it's, I found out because I was sweating through the blankets every night. Damn, girl. I found out because of other reasons. I found out because I bent over to pick up my keys and I started to bleed, and I have not had a lady time for now for a long time, but then it was like a couple years still. And I'm like, oh no, and like I pulled out my back and I'm like, holy crap, what happened? Like I had to use my grandfather's cane to walk. And I'm like hobbling around like, I don't know what's going on. And then I went to the doctor and they tested my blood for whatever and gave me a weird ass lady time. That's how I found out. Super weird. You can use other people's testing as long as you change the Lancet. Yeah, sure, change the Lancet all the time. That is good. Like change the Lancet if you're like swapping needles. I don't change my Lancet. I'm pretty sure I got them somewhere. I just don't because I like pain, I guess. It's just a little poke. And you can choose, like, that's why I like the Rely On one. Because you can choose, I don't know if you can kind of see it. Let me get closer. No, okay. Maybe you can see here. So you see those little bars? You can kind of choose how deep it goes. Oh man, this guy hasn't been changed in a while. Holy crap, it's bent. But I will say, it is nice if you don't, it's a fun joke that runs in the Beatus community. Yeah. If you don't change them. So I hated doing this. So a lot of times the you know, what happens is you pull this down and it kind of locks and loads and then it pokes your finger. I used to hate that. Freaked me out. And I would always poke myself in the thumb. I was not told how to do this by the doctor or anything. I had to figure it out all on my own. So what I would do is take just the Lancet and I would actually manually poke myself. Because it was awful. But you get used to it, and realistically it doesn't hurt. They make fine needles, they make, you know, bigger needles if you got calluses and stuff like that. But it doesn't hurt that much. Like, and nowadays it's like, oh, that's fine, because you got to figure out where to poke yourself. So let's talk about that a little bit. The apprehension of the button releasing still gets me. Try out some different pokers for sure. So like with this, I have to, I don't know if you can see that really there. So it's on green. I can't move it back to reds, but it's locked. If I push this while it's locked, it doesn't do anything. When I turn it to green, and then what I do is I actually like clench my jaw shut, and then I just slowly push until it goes tick. I don't know why I can't just I can't. I'm a coward, okay? But when it comes to, we're going to talk about this a little bit. I think this would be good for you to know if you're new. With these, when you're testing your sugars, you're going to want to go kind of in, fucking everything's white. You're going to want to go kind of around in this area, around the side of your finger, going directly in the middle or like at the tip. No bueno. Are you able to like use numbing wipes or that? Nope. You can use those, definitely. It doesn't mess anything up that I've noticed. I used to use alcohol wipes. But it wouldn't affect anything. That would be fine. They actually sell them, like I believe in the diabetic department. If you can find them, good luck. But that doesn't hurt anything. But like when I got myself here on the side of my finger, I didn't I didn't really feel it. But that's because if you do it in the center or on the, obviously the tip is just a bad idea because you're using that for everything, but the center is kind of where a lot of those nerves run. I heard doing it at the tip damages the nerves, but I don't have any proof of that. Reason why I was apprehensive of doing this before was because I was doing it in the wrong spots. And actually that's why I did it on my thumb a lot, because that's my biggest digit. And no, you can't take it from, like, I don't know what it would do if you took it from your, like, arm. But you don't want to do that. You want to do it from your fingies, and especially just right on the sides, because that's gonna not hurt your finger as much. I'll learn real quick. You don't go in the middle, because it does hurt, especially because when you're figuring out the depth with this little guy. So see how it raised up like that? That's because it's not going to go as deep into my finger, which is really great if, you know, you're a kid, or something like that, or, you know, you're just testing it out. But I go all the way, baby. Depth is important. It is. I go 100% all the way. Balls deep, as they say. Oh, good. My kids died. Giggity. Giggity indeed. And I will say the weird thing, too, is you can test... Is there a finger that is better than what? I'm actually just going to say that. I'm in the lightest setting. You can get different readings from all of your fingers. There's no finger that's better than the other that I can be like, yep, every index finger on every person is going to be your best reading. It's realistically going to be dependent on you and whichever finger you choose. I typically use my pointer finger. I was using my thumb a lot, but there's no... A test itself varies by 20 points, and that's fair. You're not going to be 110% accurate with these, but when you go to your endocrinologist, what they'll do is you can bring in your meter, if you have diabetes, obviously. So best to pick one finger and stick with it. Yes. Yep, I would say so, because you can get, you know, I had 106 on this one. Well, here. I got strips. Let's do a little experiment, why don't we? We'll do 2 fingies. We'll do the index again, and then we'll do this one. We'll do this ring finger. You do build up scar tissue, ironically, because the needles are very small, but you can build up scar tissue. They do recommend that you alternate your fingers, whichever ones you're gonna poke. It's up to you, whatever you're comfortable with, because in the long run, a few micro scars are worth it. But also the nice thing is too, like, I don't test a lot, as I've said, because I know my body. I know when my sugars are getting kind of goofed. So we'll stab again. So that one, it did sting a little bit, but it's not, it's one and done, but also my needle is dull AF. I have favorite fingers because they're easy to grip, right? Okay, so for the index, it's thinking about it. I'm down to 101, okay? So let's write that down. They're big stupid pen. Ow, my nose. Okay, 101. Okay. And then my nose. That actually really hurt. That hurt more than the stab. Okay. And then we will try this one. I always go on the, I guess, right side. Ow. But it's honestly less painful than a bee sting. Because what you want to do when you get that poke is you do have to give it a nice little squish. I squish. You can spread. I know that sounds wrong, but you can spread to get that blood too. So like this one says it's 97. I know I haven't gone down that far in the amount of time it took me to switch fingers. So I literally lick it and it's gone. Whether you like to lick your own blood or not is up to you. People spread. Yeah, I did read that if you spread it, see? So I got it gone. I don't know. Yeah, you can spread it to push out that blood too. Yep. Just whatever you're comfortable with. Yeah. Yeah, I read it in the book you recommended me, actually, that I wish I could remember the name of. But yeah, and that's a decent range. So that's 5-point difference. But like Chelsea said, that there's going to be a variable. But when you go to your endocrinologist, if you do get diagnosed, always take your little meter, because then they have their super, super fancy equipment, and they will test you with theirs, and then they will test you against yours to see, okay, you know, your meter's within 3 points of ours, you're good to go. Obviously, they do wear out, they do get old. I've had this little guy for a while. I used to have a different one, but my dad got diagnosed, so I gave it to him because it was much fancier. And I was definitely more worried about my father than myself. So, like my father, with his A1C being 5.7, he could realistically probably go off of a lot of things, and honestly use whiskey as medicine. I'm not promoting that, but it is something that the man's damn genius, and that's why I talk about him a lot, is because when he was laying there with his 863 sugars nearly dying, he figured out the algebraic equation and what he exactly needed for his insulin stuff for his diabetes. And I'm sitting here like, what's 53? I know, I'm not stupid, but to be fair, he got diagnosed in 2016 as well. When he was 50-something. I got diagnosed when I was 20-something. My brain is slipping much faster than his, I think. Which is fine. And a lot of times, if you're a friend of a diabetic, they may not talk about the symptoms that they're having because it is uncomfortable. And it is hard to talk about them with people who don't understand or know the disease, which I kind of hope with this at least. If you guys ask questions, like Panda's asking questions, anyone is welcome to ask. Even if it's not, you don't have it, that's completely fine. We're more than happy to kind of talk you through, like, oh, my friend's got it and I don't know how to bring it up or whatever. It definitely feels like being broken. And, you know, sometimes everyone has good days, everyone has bad days. And if you're a really good friend of that person, you'll know when it's okay to kind of bring it up. But it's one of those that you can't go, oh, it'll be okay. It won't. They have a terminal illness. If you have diabetes, type 1, type 2, I think other than like the pregnant one, you have a terminal disease. But that doesn't mean that you're gonna die soon either. That doesn't mean that, because something is killing everyone, right? Could always look at it that way. But it doesn't mean that you're diagnosed and that's the end of the world. It feels like it 112%. And some days, even down the road, it feels like it even more because you were living a great life eating cake and now it's like, the cake's a lie. Great. Awesome. Thank you. Thanks, life. Look, the economy's trying to make me drink water, goddammit. That's all I know. Pop's expensive. But it's... And so they may not share with you. So, like, I don't share a lot of how... Like, I'll say I'm having a badabetus day. Because it's funny. But it's also true. Like, and sometimes I can have a badabetus day for more than just one day. And it's not necessarily because my sugars are too high or too low or anything like that. It's just how the disease is personally affecting me. I think my kidneys are fine. I don't know what's going on with my guts, to be completely honest with you. No idea. I'm concerned. I will say that. I'm concerned, but I don't have the money to check out what's wrong. So, thanks, America. We won't get into the medicine thing. We will save that rant for another time. I've ranted about it before. I will rant about it again. Yeah. Anyway. But it feels like being broken, and that's a full 3-day topic. Oh boy, is it. And because some people can't afford their medicine, you know what? I'm gonna talk about it. I'm gonna touch it. We're gonna caress it. Like my hands, my nice cold hands on my hot face. We're gonna talk about it just a little bit. Okay, so let's say that you're diagnosed, you don't have insurance, and you don't have access to insulin or medicine or anything like that. This is why it's really, really, really good for you to know the foods you can eat. Get the tester. They're not that expensive. And just kind of, it sucks. It really sucks. But just take the time, oranges are bad. Pineapple's bad. Pineapple's very bad. Pasta, rice, those kind of really starchy things are typically really bad for you. Pizza's bad. Yes, pizza's bad. But if you can, that one lasts extra long. It sure does. Because it's so good. Everything that tastes good is bad, but realistically, it's good for you to know what you can and can't eat if you don't have access to these medicines, because then you can go, okay, I may not have access to the medicine, but if you're type 2, like your body still produces insulin and you can manage it. It's just really hard until you can get the medicine to help you. Like, you may never get to, 97, 101, whatever it is. But you could bring yourself down. And that's the important thing, because the more stable you can make your sugars, and a good range is between 80 and 120. That's the normal range for like typical people who don't have diabetes. That's the norm. If they eat a whole ass cake, they get 120. It's awful for us, but whatever. But for a normal person to be 120, maybe a little bit higher, but not much, right? But if you can keep yourself in that normal range until you can get the medicine, and then you can actually eat real meals, that would be the best thing. But I do know that the medicine's expensive. It realistically is. And like I said, I'm touching this topic very lightly. Very lightly. Very lightly. Just stay away from it. Walk away. Okay. But that would be the best thing, is to just understand what you can and can't eat until you can get the medicine that you need. And like, it's hard because let's say my dad was in that situation with his being age 68. He can't fucking see. He can't do this. He can't do that. It's hard. That's why I'm trying to help and give a little bit of education from someone who has it versus just a doctor who you're like, what the fuck are you talking about? You have no idea. And that's how it feels when you go to those doctors. They have no idea what the hell you're in. Unless someone has diabetes and that degree. No, that's how I felt anyway. They have no idea what you were just told. But I don't also want anyone to look at it in the sense of it's all doom and gloom. Because it sucks. It really sucks. It really fucking sucks. And it feels really lonely. Even if you're talking, I can talk about it with my dad because he has it. If my dad didn't have it, I could talk to him about it, but I don't think it'd just be, lay off the candy. Dude, I eat like one marshmallow and I'm done. I don't really like candy anymore. I mean, I like chocolate. Sometimes. Not always. I don't like gummy things, but that's beside the point. I never have. Because it's not just candy. It's everything. And that's the overwhelming part of it. It's, I'll just avoid regular pop and candy. Oh, no Olive Garden. None of that. No. Unless you're feeling brave. But then again, you have to have cheat days. This does not mean that you will never visit an Olive Garden again, goddammit. You go to that Olive Garden when you're feeling good. Your sugars are low. You need some bread. Right? You need some bread. Olive Garden. I've never been. Actually, I have been. I have been to Olive Garden. I lied to you. But yeah. It's very hard to talk to some other diabetics, but insanely hard to people who know nothing about it and grew up on the you can't have sugar idea. Yeah. Because it's not sugar, it's carbohydrates. If you just remember carbs minus fiber equals what that meal is, then you're good to go. And it's not like you can only have the one thing. You can only have, and this is another thing that they kind of told me too. It's not, okay, so let's say you're kind of high, you want to bring your sugars down, so you're sticking with 25, 30 carbohydrates a meal, okay? That doesn't mean, oh, well, I had 10 for breakfast, so I've got 40 for lunch. No. That's not how that works. Like, not like the calorie thing, where it's like, I'm going to save all my calories to dinner. No. That's all you get per meal is your 25, 30. You get half a brick of ramen. That's it. None. No more. No pop. You get water. Because milk has carbohydrates in it. You have to factor in all that crap, man. It's awful. It's hard. And I think it's even more hard. It's not the daily limit, it's per meal. Yep. And I know when I first got diagnosed too, it was one of those things that they got it wrong. It can't be me. It's not me. My body's fit as a horse. I was too. Thank you. I held my tongue on a comment, which is really good. I could say hung like a horse, but that's fine. That's fine. The other comment wasn't fine. But no, I have had a relatively healthy body up until the diabetes. And that's also really hard because some people are very healthy and strong, and it's not just fat people that get diabetes. It's not. I'm kind of round, but I'm not like grotesquely overweight. But yeah. And it's not, diabetics aren't made out of glass either. It can be when it comes to talking about their food. Oh, I am hungry. But yeah, and I think what we might do too in one of these is I will make a meal. I know, brittle diabetic may as well be. Yeah. Well, yeah, and there are a lot of terms. So like Chelsea. Wow, sorry. Chelsea just used the term brittle diabetic. So like I'm not a brittle diabetic. I can go, I can do all this junk, whatever. Some people can't. And that could be because they've had it for a long time. She's had it for 29 fucking years. It could be that at the moment their sugars aren't where they need to be. It can be a lot of different factors. But your friends are still going to want to, if you're a friend of a diabetic, we're still going to want to hang out. We still want to go out with you and hang out and have fun and eat and all this other stuff. And so for example, I went to a Renaissance festival last year with some friends, and I started to feel fucked up. Like real fucked up. I'm not, but I knew a girl. She had a what? A cutie pie or a puppo? Oh, interesting. What was I saying? Oh yeah, no, I started to feel really fucked up. So my friends, they were concerned, and I said, I have to sit. I'm gonna pass out. I need to sit, and that's my biggest fear personally. Show the dog. Oh, okay. Cutie pie of a puppo. I couldn't read that. My little chat thing's in a weird spot. That's cool, and that's handy. The dog thing. The dog thing's really handy. Then you don't have to test yourself. But that's, like a brittle diabetic. They can go low. Bam. She bounces up and down so fast she can't feel the difference. Yep. And that's a brittle diabetic. Whereas our sugars go kind of, even kilter. Brittle diabetics will literally just do drop-offs and things like that. So it's hard. And there's no rhyme or reason for it. It's just how their body operates. But I had some friends, and they, we all sat down. Do you need anything? What can I get you? Like, those aren't bad questions to ask. You're not telling them what they can and can't eat. There's a difference there. So it's not like, well, if they had come in with, well, it's because you ate this taco salad. Bitch, I'm gonna go die over here. Leave me alone. Being non-accusatory, because maybe they did fuck up. Maybe they did eat something they weren't supposed to, but don't be accusatory. Just say, hey, what do you need? Like, what can I get you? And I think I wound up getting like a turkey leg or something like that. And not a pop. I did get a pop, but it was a diet still. But that's why it is important, especially if you're going to go out to open events. So that was a Renaissance festival. We're out in the heat. We're out in the sun. We're out in being hot and gross and awesome. It was fun. But that's why you always want to bring your little tester with you. Just so you know, so you can test it. Juice for me, most places have juice of some kind. Yeah. And most places, if you're like, look, I'm a diabetic, I just need a Sippies, they'll give it to you typically. Maybe they'll charge you $1 these days. I don't know what the economy is on life, but expensive, that's what it is. But yeah, it's juice, regular pop, those kinds of things are gonna be the best bet, because that's gonna hit quicker than anything else. Or like we talked about before, those glucose tablets, the kits, I guess, or whatever, the EpiPens. That stuff's gonna be the best for you. And that's if you're low. If you're high, there's really nothing you can do. If you're gonna be going to a Comic-Con, a Renaissance festival, going out hiking, that kind of stuff, just monitor yourself a little bit in the days before, so that if you are high, only do the glucagon in emergencies. Okay. Good to know. Only do the... Well, that's when you pass out, you said. That's like you're dying low, I assume. Yep. Okay, good. I wasn't wrong. But yeah, check your sugars before you're going to do those kinds of events so that you're not running, you know, oh, the last 4 days I've been 300, but I'll be fine. Might want to bring some water sport and just make sure you have a plan of action in case something does happen. So, and it's good to have those talks when you're comfortable with your friends. Like, hey guys, like, obviously you know I have diabetes, so if I'm going low, like, this is how you use my tester. I had to do that with a friend once. I had just gotten my wisdom teeth removed, went to a meeting, and was driving with a friend, and I was driving, and I about passed out, so I pulled into a parking lot, stopped, and I'm like, I need my tester, and she had to test me. I don't know what was wrong. My sugars were pretty normal. I think it's because of the teeth thing, but whatever. So yeah, it's always good to have those talks with friends you're going to hang out with a lot, or that, you know, if you're fluctuating a lot, you're just learning, just so that they know what they can do to help you. And using a tester is not hard at all. And then I don't know. There's not a lot really you can do other than give them juice and just kind of give them water if they're high on their sugars, which we've talked about. Yeah. What else is there? There's so much, honestly. But a lot of it just comes down to what people understand of the disease. And that it's not a life. I mean, it kind of is. Like, realistically, like, when I was diagnosed, I used to tell my dad, I'm like, it doesn't matter what I have. I could have a very rare, brand new spanking disease that's going to wipe out humanity. They will put on my tombstone that I died of diabetes. There's no look into it. Is there a type of food that's best or a type of food that's worse, or just figuring out what's best for you personally? So, a little bit of both. Obviously, pastas, rice, those kinds of things are going to are just bad in general because they have a high carbohydrate count. I will say the one figuring out what's best for you personally is going to fall into like fruits, veggies, those kinds of things, because, for example, Doritos? Type 1's a bit different. That's true. For type 2, I'm talking for type 2. So for type 2, for example, my dad gets fucked up with Doritos. Like, fucked up with Doritos. I don't know why. I can be fine. I can eat some Doritos and I'm okay. He gets fucked up with them. And he ate a Dorito Locos taco once. He's like, this is fucking Doritos. I felt bad. And that's especially when he was, not new to it, but kind of learning, like, what was good, what was bad. But, so, different things will affect you differently, but there's also just a general, these are typically things you want to avoid eating a lot of. You can still have pasta, just have a little bit, don't have a huge thing. And like I said, pastas, rices, the really starchy things are going to be the things you're going to want to avoid a huge course of until you get to know your body a little better and how they affect you. Because, like, mashed potatoes are fine for me, noodles are not. You know what? But it also changes. I haven't had real noodles in a hot minute. I'd like to try them again. Especially in my salmon salad. Oh, that's so good. I miss it. Can we just talk about how much you miss things? You know how badly I love blueberry pancakes and they're all just gone? I sniff them. I got them like, oh. But again, you can eat those things. You just can't have a lot of them. Don't have regular syrup though. Just stick with sugar-free. Just don't bother. Don't do it. Doesn't matter if it's organic or not. That does play a role in it a little bit, if something's organic or not organic and how it's processed. It can all play a role. But it's realistically kind of gonna depend. Let's see, Log Cabin brand is my fave. I got the Aunt Jemima sugar-free. I got Auntie J just hanging out in my cabinet. I should make some. That's what I was gonna make like a couple days ago. They make a sugar substitute used makes a big difference in flavor. It does, especially if you're making a cake. That one tastes buttery to me. Interesting. I mean, I love butter. I'm a butter fiend. You better believe it. I love butter. The dog and the food. Oh, I love butter. But yeah, it's you have the general things, but then they also affect you differently. And they can also affect you differently based on how, so like French fries can affect you differently than mashed potatoes. Angel hair pasta can affect you differently than elbow pasta. Excuse me. The biggest takeaway from that is, yes, they affect you differently, but there's also the groups of things that are just usually bring you higher than normal, I would say, if that makes sense. I hope that makes sense, Panda. You're asking really good questions. They're sometimes hard to answer because, you know, like dark chocolate, can be better than regular chocolate. Almonds in it can make a difference. So everything's different. Everything just affects you differently. It's a whirlwind of prizes and games. It's awful. So, like, I don't have anything around me. I'd eat something and show you. I should. I don't know. What do I have? I bought a lot of soup. I'm not eating raw ramen either. I'm good. I'll starve first. I mean, probably not. There would be no slurping of the nudes, you know? Oh god, why is my face so warm? I'm not embarrassed. I'm never embarrassed. But yeah. Never? Rarely. Fever? Oh no, I don't think I have a fever. I don't think so. Sometimes my face just gets hot. What's going on here? Hey Beast, we are talking about diabetes. We've talked quite a bit about it, but I can give you a general recap. So essentially we've talked about what the disease is, what causes it, what it does to you as you age and that kind of stuff, and as the disease progresses. Shots! Diabetics! We've talked about using the different kinds. I have one kind of tester, but how you use it, what you can do if you are a friend to a diabetic, and kind of like, not trigger words, but a little bit, I guess. And just how the disease affects you in general. And the best example I have is myself and how it's affected me. Fun fact, I have the exact opposite of diabetes. So you have... Don't tell me. I know the name of it because it's funny. I have the thing that, like... Well, what's the opposite of diabetes? Not diabetes? Are you making it funny? Yeah, hypoglycemia. Diabetics can have hypoglycemia. You can be a diabetic and have hypoglycemia and, hypo, and isn't it hypo and hyper? I think so. And that's why some people have, we talked about brittle diabetics, where their sugars go just like this. Like, there's no, like, nice bell curve in their life. Type 1 is a combination of hypo and hyperglycemia. Oh, that's interesting. Huh. Correct me, in my case, my pancreas makes too much insulin. Yeah. Don't worry, it'll slow down. Yeah. And that's, well, yeah, it's hyperglycemia. But I think that's why with, like I said, not all diabetics have hypoglycemia. But I'm not sure. Buster's got pancreatitis. Oops. I gave him too many fries. He liked it! Look, we were hungry. There just was bad food for him. Whoops. But yeah, I thought it would be nice to kind of have one of these, and I'll be hopefully posting this to YouTube as well, so that people, I don't know, I kind of wanted to start maybe a little bit of a community. Hyper or hypoglycemia is just the term given by your blood sugar. Yeah. Yep. Because if you're hypo, you make too much. If you're hyper, then you make too little, I think. But I know I've had a friend recently tell me that they got recently diagnosed with it, and honestly, that's what stemmed a lot of this, is because I remembered my feelings and the struggles that I had when I first got diagnosed and not knowing, like, anything about it. Luckily I had a really good friend to help me with it, but it's a scary thing. Because realistically, like I've said, it is a terminal disease, and this is what will be on my gravestone. Correct diabetes is supposed to be where your pancreas cannot make insulin or makes way too little. So, not necessarily. So Chelsea has type 1 diabetes, I have type 2. What type 2 is... So Chelsea being type 1, her pancreas does not work at all. My pancreas works, and it's not that it makes too little insulin. The insulin it makes is just fine. Well, it makes enough. It just... my cells are resistant to it. It's also known as insulin resistance. So there's sugar floating around in my bloodstream, and my blood cells that should be like, because your insulin is like, comes up to the blood cells like, hey, we need you to like take this sugar stuff and just like use it to, you know, mitochondria powerhouse of the cell thing. And the blood's like, no. Oh, my back hurt. That felt so good. Being a blood cell is awesome. And so what happens is the sugar is kind of floating around in your bloodstream, just hanging out, having a good time, living its best life, destroying your internal organs and everything that blood goes to, because it's not supposed to be there. So, yeah, that's, no, you weren't far off at all. Nope. And that's why I also wanted to do this too, because I think it's something people should be a little educated about. Because it is kind of a more... It's a more common disease, I guess I'll say. But, yeah. And you're welcome to ask questions. You're welcome to look for insight, make comments, whatever. It's a very open... Just get out of here. Fly. But I'm trying to keep this very open. Because if someone comes across it and they are recently diagnosed, I want them to feel comfortable asking questions. Any of that stuff. So, but yeah, the friend that told me, I don't know, that stemmed a lot of it for me, because it's awful. It's an awful feeling. It's a very lonely feeling when you first get diagnosed, especially if you don't have any doctors to help or anything like that. So, yeah, I thought it would be nice. My dad had type 2. His pancreas by the end of his life didn't work at all. Yep, he was exposed to chemical warfare, and that's what caused it. Oof. Yeesh. Well, and I will say that, so your pancreas, for type 2, and that, if you live long enough, that pretty much happens to most type 2 diabetics, is that their pancreas does just give up the ghost, because it's, so like right now, my pancreas is working overtime to make, you know, especially in your first diagnosis, it's like, oh my god, make more, it's not working, why isn't it working? And it just goes into that panic state for a long time. But then obviously, like, you can't panic forever, you know? So then it starts to go, all right, this is just how life is. 5 years for it to shut down. Oof. Ouch. And that realistically just depends on the person in that scenario, too. I just looked at that light bulb. Because I've had type 2 since 2016 is when I was diagnosed. And I probably had it for longer. It's hard to tell exactly how long. I think they said like a year or something like that I was undiagnosed. Which makes sense. But yeah, I'm sorry about that. It's not fun. It's awful, actually. But, yeah. Trying to think if there's anything I'm missing that we can go over today. Because there's a lot. Transplant is an option, but I was told they usually wait until your liver or kidneys are also failing. And that's just wild to me! Like, why not just take it from the pig? And also, it's not a guarantee, as I've said before. Right. Right, it's not a guarantee. Nothing's a guarantee. But I think it's just... I got her. It was a mosquito. She was looking for blood. She sniffed it because I've been testing myself. I personally don't understand that. Why they wait until other organs are failing after your beatish blood. I know, it smells so sickeningly sweet. I'm sure, even though it's like 97 or 101 or whatever it was. I don't know, this was 101, this was 97. Why are my fingers working? I did it. It's trigger finger. I have that too. Man, I've got so many things that I have a person that calls me once a month to see how I'm doing. It's not a therapist. She's like from my doctor's office. It's great! Hooray! Anyway. But no, that... You came late, Beast. I don't have a lot more to say for this session, realistically. Panda's been asking really good questions, and I appreciate everyone that's come by and listened. And I hope it's been a little informative for you. And if you think of any questions, definitely feel free to reach out, let me know, ask. I'm more than happy to discuss. Let's see. I do know zero or diet drinks. I am unable to drink because, you know, sweetness is blood sugar in a sense. Yeah, that's fair. See, I have to drink zero sugar or diet drinks because diabetes. Drinking regular pop will kill. I say it will kill me, but like realistically, it does. Me, if I'm not in a low, drinking a diet pop would be awful. Like it's not even the fact that it was raised my sugars. Like the act of it is just awful. It's been good. I'm glad it's been informative. That's the goal. That's the hope. Because I think everyone should be a little informed. I think it's nice. Oh, you got your little Perryton too! You don't have the founder first thing. Hooray! But yeah, I got a lot of, I'm probably going to revamp the Discord just a little, well, not a little bit. I'm going to really revamp the Discord. And I might have a section here in there for diabetics, or people have questions, that kind of stuff. So it's specifically that. So we don't have to kind of mill it into the general chat if people are just talking and stuff like that. So I think it'll be good. Let's see, what else? I think that's it for now. We can get, and I'll share, I know I didn't show that video. I'll share that in the Discord. I already did, but I'll probably share it again. Because it is really informative. It's really informative. It's only like 17 minutes long. But yeah, also I'm hungry. I need to eat and go to bed. Wow, it's already 7 o'clock. Wow, where'd time go? I'm gonna hop, guys. Bye, all. Alright. Bye, Beast. Thanks for popping in. I appreciate it. It was good to see you. Yeah. I hope everyone had a lovely evening. Had a lovely time. Yee! 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 Alright. But yeah, I think this went well, and I do hope to do it about every Wednesday. We can talk about something new. They may last a while, they may not last a while. It really just depends on the group we get. But for those who aren't here and maybe are watching this in the future on YouTube, on whatever, on Twitch while it's still up, feel free to pop in, ask questions, join. I'll try to do these, like I said, every Wednesday. I can do it next Wednesday, not the Wednesday after. I will be gone. Which is the week of the 14th. From the 14th to the Friday after that, I'll be gone. There, that works. So yeah, feel free to pop by, ask questions, all that stuff. If you have a friend, parent, relative, I don't care. It's fine. It's all good. If you're maybe wanting to talk to somebody who has diabetes in your family, in your friend group, and you don't know what to say, feel free to ask. I will give you the best advice I can give. Will it be good advice? Time will tell. Anyway, I hope you all have a lovely evening, and I will see you in the next video. Take care of yourself, drink lots of water like I don't, and have a lovely time. Bye! Thank you for coming. Bye!